Welcome to Regulate and Rewire, an anxiety and depression podcast where we discuss the things I wish someone would have taught me earlier in my healing journey. I'm your host, Amanda Armstrong, and I'll be sharing my steps, my missteps, client experiences, and tangible research-based tools to help you regulate your nervous system, rewire your mind, and reclaim your life. Thanks for being here. Now let's dive in. All right, so some of you know, some of you may not, but I am a mom to a toddler boy. He just turned 3, and I am about to bring baby number 2 into the world. In fact, hopefully by the time this episode goes live, he will be here and we'll be in a whole new season of our lives. In fact, I heard something that made me laugh. Yesterday, my husband was on the phone with somebody and he was like, yeah, it's about to get real, man. You know, baby number 1 kid feels like a hobby. 2 kids is where it's probably going to get very real very fast. So I don't know that 1 kid is just a hobby, but our life is about to change. But today I want to talk about some things that I do or have done in the last couple years with my toddler to A, keep myself more regulated when my kid is losing his marbles, and B, some ways that I am supporting him in learning to listen to his body, understand his emotions and nervous system, and ultimately to add regulation skills to his own toolbox that he'll be able to utilize for the rest of his life. And whether you are a teacher, a caretaker, a parent, an aunt, an uncle, any and all of the above, a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is still going to be really helpful for you because a lot of the same concepts that apply to how I'm helping my toddler to regulate also applied to when I was learning how to reparent myself, how to become a more self-regulated adult in ways that I didn't learn to be in my own childhood. So here are some basic things to know before I dive into the specifics. Self-regulation, it's a skill. So if right now you feel like you go from 0 to 10, whether that's with anxiety or anger or overwhelm, know that it doesn't always have to be that way. Self-regulation is a skill, and like anything, it's going to take practice to get better at it. And it would have been amazing if the skill of self-regulation was something that we all developmentally learned in a safe and stable home with regulated and emotionally stable and intelligent present parents who made space for our big feelings without shame, punishment, or placation. But that's not often people's reality. And so as adults now, it is your job, it's my job to reparent and learn how to regulate. And as you do, you can show up for yourself, for your kids, and for the people around you differently in hopes that they, especially in relation to how we show up with our children, like my goal in doing all of the healing work that I've done to become a more self-regulated adult is so that my kid and kids have less work to do when they're adults because I have helped them to cultivate these skills and I have modeled for them this higher capacity for self-regulation. And so right now, my SOP or my standard operating procedure for when my kid is absolutely losing his cool is I take him to his room and I stay in there with him. Now, when I pick him up to take him to his room, it actually makes him even more dysregulated. He gets pissed. He tells me he doesn't want to go, that he wants to stay outside or to stay downstairs in his play area. But when I've tried to regulate him in those spaces, for me, it feels too hard. There's too many distractions. The environment is chaotic. There's some unpredictables. And so I have found that we both, right, because this is as much about me and my regulation as it is about facilitating his, I have found that we both need the containment and those minimized distractions. And this is what works best for us right now. And the reality is when baby brother is here, we will likely have to change a lot of the ways that we do things since I can't as safely leave 1 kid alone to attend to the other. But as I learn to navigate what that looks like in a month or year, I'll share that with you too. But what I'm going to share with you here is what this has looked like for us right now. And so the thing to understand is kids do not have the ability to self-regulate. They don't. When we send a kid away into timeout by themselves, or when we send them to their room when they are having an outburst or having a meltdown or a tantrum, they are not self-regulating. They are going into their room and they are likely either crying themselves till exhaustion or essentially until shutdown, until they give up, that their needs aren't going to be met, they're not being seen, they're not being heard. And anything I share in this episode is not to shame the way that you might be parenting. I am simply sharing what I understand about child development, nervous system capacity, etc. And then you get to filter this through what works for your family, what works for you. Has there been moments where I have left Cade in the house and I stepped outside? Yeah, because if not, I was going to lose my cool. My experience as a kid when I had big feelings was I was often sent to my room. And I'm seeing how being sent away with my big feelings has created patterns in my life as an adult that I don't want to recreate for my children. And again, this isn't to say my parents did it wrong. They did it the way that they did. And based on my personal experience, I want to do it different based on what I understand about children. So children do not have the capacity to self-regulate. Their nervous systems are dependent upon an adult, usually a parent, being able to stay calm when they're not, being able to hold space for big, hard emotions. Another thing that I presume happened a lot, I don't have a lot of clear memories, but I think a lot of times my big emotions were placated. It was like, okay, you just want it, here you go. And so my capacity to learn how to hold and navigate big emotions was also stunted because they were fixed. And so my goal as a parent is that I create enough self-regulation for me that I can allow my children to have their big feelings, for me to be able to stay with them in their big feelings and know that they are safe to work through this, that I love them even when they're angry, even when they're ornery, and that there's a way for us to calm down and to communicate and to reset this stress cycle. So here's kind of what this might look like. So the other day, Cade, and that's my son's name, he insisted on having a piece of candy at 9 a.m. And I told him, right, because part of being a good parent is also setting boundaries with your children, teaching them the rules of the world. And I told him, it's not time to eat candy right now, but that we can have a piece together later at lunch. And of course, he's 3. No, right now, no, right now, no, right now. And I let him know that if he grabbed the bag of candy off the counter, I was going to put it away on the top of the fridge. Well, he grabbed the bag and I put it on top of the fridge. And that stubborn kid, he grabbed a chair to try to stand on. He grabbed his stool, but it was simply out of reach. And the meltdown followed, right? He started to push his chair against the fridge. And when asked to stop, he looked me dead in the face and did it again. So I picked him up and we went to the room together. And it always starts the same when I bring him into his room so that we can kind of regulate. He starts pulling on the door handle and crying for me to open the door. Like, I don't want to be in my room. I don't want to be in my room. And I'm going to attempt to role play this with maybe 2 different voices so that you can tell what's my toddler and what's me. We'll see how it goes. So he's there pulling on the handle in hysterics, like, open the door, open the door. And I calmly respond, you want me to open the door? Yes. I will open the door once we can talk about what just happened. I don't want to talk. I'm like, that's okay. I'm here for when you want to talk. Open the door. I know you're frustrated. It's okay to be frustrated. I'm here for you. Open the door. And, this goes on for like minutes, right? Just whatever I say calmly, open the door. I say something, open the door. And I respond. So my tactics when this happens is number 1, I have to stay regulated. I am sitting here taking my deep breaths, kind of rubbing my own legs, and fighting every urge in my body to like just want to yell at him, tell him it's not a big deal, right? Like our urges come from what we experienced. And so I know for me, I'm like, ooh, okay. I have kind of two mottos with parenting that are getting me through right now. And it is this motto of firm but kind. In order for me to feel like I'm doing my job, I need to be firm, but I want to be kind about it. And the second motto that is getting me through right now is just reminding myself that the parenting that I want to do is going to be inconvenient. I am somebody who loves time management. I have a lot of things that I juggle. I hate feeling like I'm wasting my time. And sometimes sitting in a room with a screaming toddler for 20 minutes feels like I'm wasting my time. And I have 100 other things that I could be getting done in that moment that I could do technically if I just like left him in his room by himself. But that's not what I know he needs to become a more self-regulating adult sometime in the future. And so I just sit there and I remind myself, like, firm but kind, stay kind. What do you need to do to stay kind? And it's okay that you're being inconvenienced. You're choosing to be inconvenienced. Being the parent that you want to be is inconvenient. And for me right now, those two reframes, those two mottos on repeat are helping me to show up more intentionally. So just throwing that out there, maybe that's helpful for you. So kind of back to this example, right? Because I want you to be able to see how this plays out. And if I could find the the nursery camera footage for this, I would play that instead of role playing, but it is what it is. So I just repeat calmly, like, I will open the door when we can get calm together and talk. Do you want space or do you need a hug to help getting calm? And this usually takes about 3 or 4 rounds of the like, I'll open the door when, I understand you're frustrated, I'm here, do you want space or do you need a hug? Sometimes this process takes 20 minutes and sometimes it takes 5. But I think every single time, sometimes he'll request space eventually, but he eventually goes, yeah, mama, and he'll walk over to be held. And I always do. I hold him and I typically rock or I rub his back because I know that that is soothing for nervous systems. And I'll just, again, state, I know you're sad. I know you're frustrated. I love you even when you're sad and frustrated. I'm here to help you. These are big feelings, and big feelings can be hard. Like, how are you feeling now? And it's usually like, I'm sad. It's okay to be sad. Are you feeling any better with mommy holding you? Yeah. Do you want to take deep breaths? And he'll say yes or he'll say no. And a lot of times, even if he says no, I will model some deep breaths. And he will often take them as I do a deep inhale and a deep exhale that he can kind of hear. Sometimes I'll have him say, I'm like, do you want to blow mom's hair? So that's something we did when he was really little to help him with long exhales. So he'll, blow my hair and make it move. And then I'll ask him, are you ready to talk? And he usually says no. And I say, okay, tell me when you're ready. Because when you're ready to talk is when we can open that door. And eventually he does. He says, okay, ready. And so this particular time, our conversation went something like, do you know why we had to come into your room? Well, I just want 2 candies. I understand that you want candy, but it's not time for candy right now. And we don't always get what we want. But I want it. Yeah, son, I know. I know you want it, but we don't always get what we want. And even mommy doesn't get what she wants sometimes. And that can feel really frustrating. And because he's 3, but I want it right now. And I just take a deep breath because I'm like feeling like I'm going to lose it at this point. I know, but we still aren't going to have it right now. But would you like to have that piece of candy with me at lunch later? Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. We have candy together later. Okay. Now we have to talk about one more thing. We have to talk about you hitting the fridge with the chair. That's not something that we do when we're mad. Mommy likes her fridge. Mommy wants to keep her fridge nice. We don't hit it with a chair. Okay. Okay, mama. So when we go back into the kitchen, I need you to put the chair back at the table and then let's go outside and play with the dogs for a bit. How's that sound? Okay, mama. Right? So what happened in this experience, right? My kid requested something. I set a boundary. I was firm, but I was kind about it. And he was still pissed off. Your kid's being mad, your kid's throwing tantrums doesn't mean you've necessarily done anything wrong as a parent. Part of our job is to do things that are going to make our kids annoyed with us and angry and disappointed. And then when it kept escalating to the point where there was, destructive behavior, at least towards my fridge, which I don't want that's in, I said, all right, we need to go and do this a different way. I stayed with him in that room. At no point did I tell him it wasn't a big deal. I didn't belittle the experience that he was having. And there are urges in me to do all of those things. So this isn't like, wow, look at Amanda and what an amazing parent she is. Wow, look at Amanda who has the urge to yell at her kid, who has the urge to flush her kid down the toilet, who wants to just send him to his room so that she can continue to be productive and do other things. And again, like I said, I have one kid right now. I'm sure that this formula and how this works is going to look different when I have more kids. I'm just going to have to navigate that. But I held that space for him. I was firm, but I was kind. I allowed myself to be inconvenienced. I didn't try to logically rationalize with my kid when he was pulling on the door handle and screaming, right? Our kids don't have the capacity to be logical until they're regulated. So I knew that my job was, number one, to help him to get regulated, and then we could talk. And what I have loved about this is that each time we go through this full inconvenient cycle, it gives us a new reference point. And there are times when I can see a situation going in a similar way, and I can say, hey, remember last time when you hit the chair, when you got angry and you hit the fridge with the chair, and we had to go to your room and we worked together to calm down. If you do insert another behavior that I'm not going to allow while he's feeling angry, if you do this, then we're going to do that again. If you're feeling angry, here's an alternative. And so each time I'm able to help him go from being super overstimulated to completely reset, it gives us a new data point, a new level of emotional maturity to some extent. For my kid, it gives us a point of reference, and it's learning, right? The key here is that I stayed calm, and he was eventually able to meet me in that. And like I said, I've gotten so much better at holding the space with practice and those mental reframes that I have made about parenting. And still, just in case some of you have put me on a pedestal and are like, man, she's just like doing it. She's just figured it out. I want to share another example of a time a few months ago that I didn't stay calm. I kind of lost my cool. And this was over him not listening while he was riding his bike. And so I picked him up and I picked his bike up. He was given his warnings, like, if you X, then we have to go inside. We have to be all done. Like, your actions have consequences. And the same thing ensued, right? We go to the room, open the door, I want to go outside, and so on. And this meltdown was bigger. It lasted longer. And at this point in the day, my capacity was just toast. And at one point, I yelled his name really loud and really sharp. And it was just like, Cade. And my goal in my, I think, brain was that I was going to shock him. I was going to get his attention and hopefully be able to redirect from the tantrum. But what happened was my dysregulation, my yelling escalated his. He looked at me scared and he came over and he hit me. And my child had never hit, at least me before. I've never seen him hit anybody else before. And about a week later, another meltdown happened again later at night when my capacity was smoked. And I tried the same thing. I yelled his name, same reaction. He came over and hit me. My escalation, my dysregulation became his escalation and his dysregulation. And I was like, ooh, okay, noted. Yes, I absolutely was like, you don't hit mom. I set that boundary. I said, mom's going to move away so that she can protect her body. But also, I took responsibility. What a natural response, right? He has previously felt really safe. Mom has been able to stay calm when he's not, and now she's not. His nervous system went into a state of fight or flight. He chose fight. And he hit me. Now, if I was a parent who reacted to his hitting by either hitting back or yelling even more back, likely eventually his response instead of fight or flight becomes shut down, right? His nervous system realizes I can't overpower my parent. There's no point in fighting back. I'm not safe if I do. More harm comes to me. And so in this moment, understanding the nervous system in the way that I do, there was actually part of me that was like, man, I'm glad my kid feels safe enough with me to hit me. And that sounds real backwards to some of you. And like I said, we've set a boundary. That behavior has not happened again. But I didn't set that boundary in a place of fear. I set that boundary in a place that his little brain could understand. And I took responsibility of course, he went into a state of fight. I yelled. That was my version of fight. And he was defending himself in the only way his little nervous system and his body knew how. And so in this situation, especially the second time it happened, I felt like crap because I've made the decision that I don't want to be a mom that yells. And once we got to that calm place together, I acknowledged to him, I said, hey, did it scare you when mom yelled? And he started to just tear up, lip quiver. And he said, yeah, mom, I got scared. And I said, I'm so sorry that I scared you. I don't like that I yelled either. And the next time that mommy yells, if I yell again in the future, you can say, mommy, please don't yell. Because another thing that I want to teach my child to do is I want to teach him how to advocate for himself. I want to teach him that he sets the rules for how people get to treat him. And in some small, tiny way, I can do that even at 3. And you know what? Since that happened, I haven't yelled at him, but I did holler at the dogs pretty loud and curtly once. And he goes, Mama, please don't yell. And I had this moment. I was proud. He heard me. He heard that he's allowed to advocate for himself. We did have a conversation around how me hollering at the dogs is not the same as me yelling at him, that I sometimes, yell to get attention, not because I'm mad or when daddy can't hear me. But the reality is that we're building context. And the moral of this story for the sake of this conversation is that when I model regulation, he learns regulation. And when I escalate, he escalates. When I show up in a way that I am not proud, I can apologize. I can repair and I can empower him, even at 3 years old, to help hold me accountable. And that also teaches him how to set boundaries for how he is or isn't willing to be talked to or treated. And something else that I want to mention is that these tools and these things only work in the tantrums. They only work in these highly dysregulated moments because I've been really intentional to practice these with him when he and I are calm or in smaller moments of dysregulation. I've been doing deep breaths with him since he was about a year old. Now, if you have older kids, it's never too late. But like I said, I would have him blow on my hair to make it move or like a piece of string. When he was about a year and a half old, we started doing this like fun little bedtime routine with various somatic practices that I even have my adult clients do. So we would do wiggles. And that would be, my attempt to help him discharge any of that like leftover energy from the day. We would do a little self-hug with some affirmations. He'd put his legs up the wall. That's mostly a practice that I need at the end of the day. And I would just have him join me. And then we would do a hug and take some deep breaths, snuggle and sing, right? And so all of this, it sounds like a lot, but all of this is, 10 minutes or less. And it's something that we can proactively practice so that he's familiar with deep breaths, with giving himself a hug, with doing some wiggles when I need those in the moment. And I also invite him to help me regulate. Sometimes I'll say, hey, mommy's feeling really frustrated right now or a little stressed. Like, do you want to do some wiggles with me? Mommy is sad right now. Or actually just 2 days ago at church, I started to tear up. And he looks at me and he goes, Mama's sad? And I said, yeah, I'm a little sad right now, but it's okay. And he goes, Mama, I help you with your feelings. And he crawls onto my lap and gives me a hug, which of course makes me start sobbing. But it's one of those moments where I'm like, like it's clicking, right? And so what I am trying so hard to do is to just model that emotions are okay to have. There are things that we can do to regulate, and it's okay to ask for help in that process. And there was this really incredible moment that happened just a few days ago where he wanted to role play comforting each other, right? Kids at this age, they're role playing. They're playing, let me make you food, and let me change a baby's diaper, and let me crash a truck into a wall. I don't know, right? And so I'm in the kitchen and I'm cutting and I'm preparing to dehydrate some pears. And he's on the floor with his trains. And he looks at me and he says, Mommy, I'm going to crash into you. And I just kind of laugh and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, I just keep on cutting my pears. And then he says, Mommy, you're scared. I scare you. And I pause and I was like, what? He said, I crashed the train and I scare you. So I buy into it and I'm like, oh yeah, like Mommy's scared. Like, and then he looks at me and he goes, are you sad, Mommy? Yes, Mommy, you sad. I help you feel better, right? And he opened his arms for a hug and then told me to take a deep breath. And then just after this happened, I opened the voice recording on my phone to leave a quick voice note about this experience and how I wanted to share it on the podcast. And I just left it running because then he goes, Mommy, your turn. He wanted to switch roles. So instead of role playing this situation, I'm actually just going to play this for you because I caught it on my phone. It's about 2 minutes. And the first thing you're going to hear is him wanting me to crash it into him to comfort him. And then he is going to crash it back into me for the second or third time. So here is that little audio clip.
Mommy.
Is it my turn to scare you?
Yeah.
Okay. Here comes the train. Here comes the train. And crashed into Cade. Are you scared?
Yeah.
Do you need a hug?
I'm sad.
You're sad? Do you need a hug to help with your sad feelings?
Yeah.
Okay. Hug. Do you want to try to take some deep breaths?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel now?
Bad.
You feel better? Okay.
I think scare you now.
Now you're going to scare me? Okay.
Wait. I scare you though. I scared you.
What'd you do?
I scared you.
Oh no, I'm scared.
Okay, if you sad.
I'm a little sad.
You want sad.
I'm a lot sad.
Yeah.
Yeah? Can you help me be less sad?
Yeah.
Oh, you're giving me a hug? Thank you. Is there anything else we should do to help when we're sad?
Yeah. Maybe this will help you.
Oh, maybe that toy will help me?
Yeah.
Oh, this is a cool toy.
That will help you.
And I loved every bit of this. I love that he sees emotions and this process of co-regulation as something that is as natural to role play as him making fake soup or pretending with his other toys. And as a parent, half of the time I feel like I am floundering. I don't know what I'm doing. It's all some messy combination of what I think worked about the way that I was parented growing up and the things that I want to do differently. And I'm not a parenting expert. I'm a nervous system expert. And I'm sure that there are parenting experts out there who would have opinions and suggestions on how I could do or say some of these things better. And so please combine this information with the information that you get from other places and take what works for you, filter it through your personal experience and your family. But I do know this. Our kids are dependent on co-regulation. So instead of dismissing, threatening, or rescuing them from their big feelings and disappointments, we need to teach them how to compassionately gain control over their bodies and manage their emotions. And just like math or reading, self-regulation is a skill to be learned. And for children to learn these skills, they must be taught. And it's taught through modeling, through co-regulation. And this involves one person staying calm and present while the other person experiences something challenging. And this happens for our kids when we can stay calm and present for them. And this happens for my clients in sessions where I or one of my coaches is able to stay calm and present for them, or in other safe relationships in our life. And this concept of co-regulation, it takes two, you and your little on the same team. And I do not do it perfectly, but I am pretty dang proud so far of how I am trying and the capacity that I've created in me to hold space for him. And I'm only able to do that because of the healing work that I have done on my own nervous system, and because of the space that is held for me by my partner, my coaches, and my support system. And I feel like there is so much more that I could say on this topic, but I am going to end it here for time's sake. And if regulated parenting is something that you want me to talk more about here on the podcast, send me an email or a DM over on Instagram with specific questions or topics that you would like me to dive into. So to bring this all together, the 3 tangible takeaways from today is, number 1, I sound like a broken record, but kids are dependent on you for regulation. And your healing, your regulated nervous system is the greatest gift that you can give them. Number 2, and this one I didn't explicitly say, but it's something that I wanted to clarify. You cannot reason with your kid until you are both calm. Like the process I shared, you have to first regulate and then reason. Calm down and then talk. And this goes for the same in our adult relationships with our family members, with our partners. When you are escalated, you are not reasoned. So we need to regulate and then reason. And tangible takeaway number 3 is that practicing coping skills when you're calm is key to having access to those coping skills when you're not. And not only does this consistent practice create more overall nervous system support and regulation, but it creates familiarity in your system. It literally builds neural pathways in your brain. And so the more often you practice these regulating tools, the more well-worn these pathways become, and the more of a viable option they are for you, for your kids, in those moments of dysregulation. Self-regulation is a skill. And if you're somebody with children, it is one that they are learning from you. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Regulate and Rewire podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review to help us get these powerful tools out to even more people who need them. And if you yourself are looking for more personalized support in applying what you've learned today, consider joining me inside Rise, my monthly mental health membership and nervous system healing space, or apply for our one-on-one anxiety and depression coaching program, Restore. I've shared a link for more information to both in the show notes. Again, thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.